Okay, I need some help with Ableton Live. I'm having some issues with getting cracks and pops with my audio when I'm playing live sounds. Seems to be fine when sound is played from clips, but when I play live sounds, I'm getting cracks and pops. I've done extensive reading on optimizing my system and my Ableton sets, and I've applied what I've learned from that reading, and I'm still getting the issue. And what I stumbled upon was that it seems to be related not only to my buffer setting, which is what you'd first go to, what you'd expect, and but it's also related to my screen changing. So I'll demonstrate what that looks like. A couple things about my setup. I'm going to demonstrate two things. I've got Reason on my computer as well, and I'm trying to set up so that I can play my sounds from Reason. So I've got a rack here of instrument devices that are submixed to one of four submix channels, and then those are routed to the hardware device in Reason. The stereo pairs of each of those four go through channels 1 through 8 of the hardware device. And then those sounds, those outputs are rewired into these four channels, each stereo pair getting its own track in Ableton. I've got my MIDI coming in here, and then I can use this instrument rack device chain to send the MIDI to specific devices in Reason. Reason sounds are on my internal solid state drive. This channel is simply an Ableton sound, and I have my Ableton sounds on an external SSD via a USB 3.1 connection. So a good fast. I've run that, haven't had any issues running my clips and sounds from that. However, again, playing live, it doesn't seem to matter whether I'm going from my internal drive or my external drive. You'll see that this sound takes up a little less resources. I think that's just because of the sound as opposed to being a drive issue, a bandwidth issue on the drive. But still, I'm getting the same cracks and pops. So I'll show you as well my audio settings in Ableton. So I'm just using the external out, or the built-in output, and I've got the mono channels muted. My sample rate is 44.1K, and that's about as low as you'd want to go for live audio for your quality. My buffer size currently is at 256, and that's about the most latency I can stand when I play personally live instruments. I'm going to drop that down to accentuate something. 256 isn't too bad, but the cracks and pops are still there. So let me play a little bit. I'm going to first play the Reason sounds for you and let you listen to that. So there you can hear it already. So let me stop this one so there's no input on the Ableton sound. Actually, let me delete that altogether here. So that'll clean things up immediately. You'll notice my CPU meter up here is hovering in the upper 40s. 40%, so still some room. And my CPU meter over here, a lot of that is being consumed. A lot of what's being used is being consumed by the QuickTime screen recording that I'm making. But there's a lot from live, but still less than half of a core. I've got a 4-core plus hyper-threading i7 processor. Memory is good. I'm not even using half of the 16 gigabytes that are in there. And plenty of idle CPU So when I go to Reason, when I go to Ableton, there are some cracks and pops. Again, my buffer samples are set at 256 for this one. So it's not terrible, but they're still there if you listen closely. But so that I can accentuate it, and there you can hear a pop. See if it does it again. I'm going to drop my buffer down to 128, and that will accentuate it. So you can hear a good bit of popping there. So it is buffer related. However, listen to what happens when I change my screen. Hear how much more it is, and even when I'm in Reason. Now listen to what happens when I minimize the application window. Completely goes away. If I change my screen or have it on something that's updating pixels, there's issues. If I minimize Reason, and there you can see my audio settings. So it completely goes away till I start changing pixels on my screen. As long as the application window is minimized, the issue is kind of not there. And just to show you that it's not just an internal drive thing, let me pull this back in here. And I will turn this monitor on. I'll turn the signal to Reason off. So you can still hear the crackling. Now, this sound doesn't take up as many resources, so it's not going to crackle as much. But you can hear that it's still crackling. Totally unusable. But just to demonstrate that that it's not just the buffer. So I can take this down to 64 samples, and you can hear how terrible that is. Watch this. It goes away. And 64 samples is still even usable for this particular sound. As soon as I start to change pixels, that becomes an issue. And just to prove to you that it's not the external drive that's the issue, and getting those Reason sounds back up is a little bit more intensive. Let me delete this so it's not adding to our issue. Actually, let me undo that, because maybe we can even have that sound playing. So 64 samples for my buffer goes away as long as I minimize the screen. So a little bit of popping there. Lots of popping if I'm changing my screen. reason sounds at 64 samples in my buffer, just nice and clean. So it's related to a buffer issue, but it's not just the buffer issue. There's something going on with the screen that's either stealing resources or is somehow messing with the quality of the sound. So if you have any suggestions for how I can fix that, so that I can have my application window up, I like to have the feedback that Ableton gives when I'm playing live. I would appreciate your input. Thanks.